Kingy, what was your first thoughts after last night's epic?
That's more of the Carlton that we've come to know. Back to that brutal best inside. I thought their start to the game was just outstanding. That first quarter is as good a footy as you'll see. Both defensively, they were able to hold up behind the ball. I thought Wiedering was terrific through the course of the night. I thought McGovern was significant in the first 40 minutes. Yep, he got beaten by Petrarca from the square, but I thought he was seriously important. But then to see Petrarca do what he did, oh my God, what a player. What a player.
Maybe the best individual performance I've seen this year. I mean, there's been big ones, but I mean, that's in the top five for what he did to single-handedly get his side back into that game. The problem for them now is, what do you do with him? Like, where's he? We saw this at the back end of last year. They had scoring problems. They put him forward. He was awesome. So what now? Do they have enough midfield depth to be able to hold him a bit more permanently forward?
Well, you don't know till you know. I think this is about trust now. So Simon Goodwin must look at that and think, okay, how good does our forward line look? How dangerous does it look when Christian's down there? And are you better off trialling and asking for a bit more out of some of the younger players? I'd look at putting Rivers back in the middle. Yeah. I think Sparrow's been in there a lot lately. He was all right again last night.
Neil Bullen went in there.
Yeah, just trust those guys a little bit more. I'd even look at McVie in there. I love what this guy's becoming. Just find out what the scope is on some of those younger players through maybe the next 5 to 6 weeks, in the hope that you can find one or two to spike. I mean, who is their Hayden Young? Who is the guy that can actually just go from a flanker to a damaging mid in a short space of time? And if you do get that, I mean, you don't have to leave Christian 100% forward for 100% of the game. He can float in and out, but what a talent he is, Corns. Not many players in our comp could do that. No,
it was unbelievable what we were watching. And I just think about, for me, the Blues, when their best five come to play, like they're as good a top five players that any team has. So when you get that from Wiedering, Cripps and Walsh, I think they're having enormous seasons. I know you spoke a little bit about Walsh and his ball use pre-game, and I think that was fair, just with the hacking and the bomb kicking inside forward 50, and that's something that he can continually work on. And then Mackay and Curnow both played their roles. I thought Curnow was much better against May. I thought he came up the ground. Early on, he got involved up the ground. I think he's a weapon with his ball use outside of 50, and we saw a couple of those goal assists last night. So love to see him play with a bit more freedom and have a bit more of a Jeremy Cameron licence, which I thought he got last night. Bob's up behind the ball, just got involved, and he was more proactive than he just wanting to stand and wrestle like he did in the finals against May last year. Not to say May wasn't good, but I mean, every time they were challenged and Melbourne thought they were coming back into it prior to the last quarter, the Blues responded from centre bounce. Like, they're a devastating stoppage team, aren't they, when they're going?
Yeah, well, centre bounces are a really fluky part of our game. I know there's a lot of science goes into them and all those sort of things, but to get a 5-goal return from centre bounces is unheard of. Carlton have done that, I think it was 3 times. They've had 2 better performances than that in the last 5 years of footy. So that just shows how much of an outlier it actually is. I'm with you. I thought the May-Curnow matchup was a beauty. It's fascinating to watch all night. May went with him high more often than not, and then they basically... I thought Vossi had a terrific night in the coach's box to set up the lead, and then Petrarca said, no, hang on, I'm going to have something to say about this late. But to set up the lead... The way they played Lever, I thought, was significant. They isolated him when they could. They took him off the line of the ball when they could, knowing that the security blanket of May wasn't there, and went to work around them. So that was great coaching. Paddy Cripps' role, being able to get forward. So he wasn't in. So they kicked 5 goals from centre bounces. He wasn't in at 4 of them. He was forward of the ball in 4 of them. That's, to me, the new version of Patrick Cripps. He's evolving into a centre-forward player. So I love what they're doing with him. So I think we're seeing the start of Carlton gathering again. They've been playing okay. There's been nothing wrong with how they've been playing. Just hadn't been winning. So people are very critical of the results.
I don't think anyone had been panicking. But if you're staring at it last night, you're going, okay, we're looking at being 5-4. We're too good to be 5-4. So they hold on by it. So that's what I was saying in the lead up to the game. I don't know how to pick this, but what I do know is that Carlton are too good a side to be out of the 8 at the end of round 9 and 5-4. Now, their draw is a little bit more difficult than Melbourne's is. They've got Sydney next week at the SCGs, a ripper. Gold Coast, Port Adelaide and Essendon before they have their bye in round 14. For Melbourne, it's West Coast, St Kilda, Fremantle and Collingwood next week. The keys for Melbourne forward of the ball are still a talking point, aren't they? Like, if Petrarca doesn't do what he did last night, I think we're all going, gee, they're going to flip and flop, and Turner and Petty and Van Rooyen haven't yet been able to be a winning formula. And I still think that is the case. Tricky conditions, I know, for key forwards, but we've been having this discussion around Melbourne for a long time.
Yeah, and
What's
it's a
the
tough
right setup?
Well, Petty had Wiedering last night. I mean, good luck with that one. He was on a mission last night, Jacob Wiedering, to be the man behind the ball. And as I said, I think they had the powwow during the week. It sounded like Fossey was alluding to that. You've got to be more for us. And I thought he was terrific last night. 8 intercepts, 4 of those marks. So if he's taking those intercept marks, then there's something wrong with your key forwards. I mean, that minimum has to get to ground to allow your smalls to go to work. I thought Chincotta, I just want to mention Chincotta. His game last night on Cozzy Pickett was just terrific. For first 3 quarters of the game, he kept into 6 kicks. He was unsighted, Cozzy. So I think they're starting to. When you look at Carlton, it's easy to fall in love with their lineup on paper, but just you need to see it. There's so much scope for improvement, I still think, in this Carlton lineup. And I do think Melbourne, and people don't like hearing this, they really don't. I think they're winning games of football whilst evolving. They're changing their whole ball movement profile. And at times it's clunky, and at times it's not as effective or as diligent as what it's been over the last few years. So they're in the process of evolving. In 5-6 weeks' time, they'll be a better version of what they are, the first half a dozen rounds of the season. So I'm excited about where they're going. It didn't work last night, but it didn't fail by much.
Yeah. I love what they did in the last quarter. Clearly there was some freedom, take the game on, double handball receives, go forward more often than what they did, and go forward quickly and give your forwards a shot. And like, they were kicking everything. Like, so that helps when you're as accurate as what they were. But you'd love to see that attitude more often, because they still defended extremely well in that last quarter. They held Carlton to 5 entries. So I think and I hope that they can realise that you can be attacking whilst also defending. They're always defence first, contest. But if we can start to see a little bit of what we saw in the last quarter, then who knows how devastating they could be. That was awesome what they did in those conditions late, but there was some freedom about it. There was not huge consequences, because they knew they had to take it on and try and win this game of footy where they were trying to save it early.
So Petrarca kicks those couple of goals, and the text has just come in as well. I've had this written down from 896. He kicks those 2 goals, and then he comes from the field. Yeah. He's playing forward. He's not even puffing. He's full of juice. The adrenaline's running. The Melbourne players are invested in the game again. And you bring him from the ground. This is where these rotations just break me.
Madness. Well, and we've seen it with Bontempelli the last 2 weeks. Crunch time in last quarter, 7 to 8 minutes on the bench in crunch. Yeah. So last week it was like from the 18-minute mark to the 26-minute mark of that game against. What is going on? And I think it's on the player as well. Like, Petrarca's at the level now where he says, I'm okay, I'm fine. It's the last quarter. This win is really important. It's almost like a double game when you're looking for 4 spots in the top 4 and you're playing against a side that's going to be there. I'm staying out here. I think that's fine for it. Bontempelli, I'm okay. If I have to, I'll go forward. I'm not coming off the ground.
But Simon Goodwin's on the bench.
I know.
Well, he's at the bench. He should say, no, hey, whoa.
Do the Ross.
Cancel that.
Do the Ross.
Get back out there.
Yeah, we saw it with Ross with Wilson last week. None of this namby-pamby stuff.
No namby-pambies. There's a game there to be won. I mean, we're talking big stakes, aren't we? He's on fire. They've got some belief. Back out you go. You're playing forward. We know you can handle the workload. The next 5 minutes of footy are pretty important. I just don't understand that. No. It really frustrates me. So I'll probably just got to let that go. It's an interesting conversation when Max Gawn doesn't dominate games.
Yeah.
The effect that has on Melbourne. Like, where else do they win the game?
I asked McWalter about that pre-game. I said, are you worried about the lack of support under Max? There's nothing. Their season is really relying on Max Gawn, and we've seen Chris Scott being prepared to rest players and flip ruckman. They don't really have that luxury, Melbourne. But at some point they're going to have to rest him. They're going to have to play him forward, and they're going to have a look at another ruckman, because what happens if he gets injured? There's no Brodie Grundy. There's nothing. There's Tommy Fullerton, which we've discussed before on this program. So I think that's the real concern for Melbourne. Like, this guy's not young anymore. Like,
I just get a little bit of feedback on the old text machine here. Some things really annoy me.
what?
He says Christian Petrarca had 5 minutes on the bench for the day. Give him a spell. If he had 5 minutes on the bench for the day, I'll go he. There's been a breakdown. He would have had closer to 15, 20 minutes on the bench. They're managed to win into their lives, these guys, Cornsey.
Yeah.
Do you need to be able to? I don't know. You have to override at some
it.
stage.
You have to go. He's playing forward. He's not playing midfield. He can clearly cope. He's a fitness machine, and he can stay out on the ground in that moment. So I'm with it. And he would have only played 80% max. I reckon we'll find his game time. If Horny's listening, send us through Christian Petrarca's game
or
time.
Derm can do it.
It wouldn't have been above 80%. There's no way on that one.
Yeah. So this is a good chat, isn't it? A great conversation, mate. Where do you sit, Cornsey?
I'd rather be Carlton. I think they've got more weapons.
More weapons.
Yep, individually, more weapons. You sound like you're disagreeing.
I think the first thing to put on the table is you don't dominate the whole 120 minutes against a good team.
Never.
It's ebbs and flows, and it's cashing in when you've got momentum and thwarting the opposition. I thought Lever's game was, in a nutshell, was Melbourne last night. First half, he was taken advantage of by some of the Carlton forwards. Second half, he was brilliant. A lot of intercepts. He thwarted every counter punch from Carlton. Carlton only scored 1 point from turnover in the second half. Now that's, to me, just shows you how defensively gifted the Melbourne Football Club are.
You'd rather be Melbourne. You'd rather be Melbourne right now.
I think they've both got so much scope for improvement.
Who would you rather be?
Well, I'm on board. I like Carlton,
Okay,
but I do think these two have got 20% improvement still left in them.
This is that for Grays.com, Australia's leading online auction marketplace. You're going to set your sights on a Brownlow medalist, I think.
Well, I was going to put a whole footy club in there, but I'll get to that later on today. I'm putting Ollie Wines in the gun. I want to see Ollie Wines wind the clock back tonight and perform without the security blanket of Connor Rozee in the midfield. They need him to have a performance. This year is the 177th rated player in the competition. That's a drastic drop from where he's been. 13 clearances in the last month of footy. He's been playing ruck. He's been playing on ball. That's just an average return. 18 score involvements. We need Ollie to get back to his best, to his ball-winning best. We haven't seen it for a little while. He's a massive presence on this team. I know he's playing a little bit of ruck. He's playing a little bit of forward of the ball as well, but he's an 80% midfielder. Tonight's the night to show that you still got it. Or maybe Ken has to reevaluate this midfield and the magnets that he's putting in there.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair to put Ollie Wines in the gun. No, I got a double pronger.
A double pronger?
A double pronger.
I like this already.
Well, I'm putting Damien Hardwick in the gun.
Oh, not again.
No, not again. Just putting him fairly in the gun. Because, and I know he's maybe one of your whipping boys, and probably rightly so, for the use of Jack Lukosius. So I thought, for the first time, Lukosius last year commanded a position and he had found his place. 39 goals, he kicked 3 bags of 5 and a bag of 4. And honestly, we were discussing him in All-Australian meetings halfway through the year going,
what?
Yeah, halfway through the year we're going, okay, with Jack Lukosius, his name has to be there. Now it trailed off a little bit towards the back end of last year, and Hardwick comes in and tries to turn him back to a floating ball user across half-back, and now they've sacked that because that didn't work and they're going to put him forward again. Just settle him in the one position, the forward line with King, Walter and Lukosius, who is still only 23 years of age, is perfect. He's your perfect third tall, and I know at times he's laconic, and I know at times his effort can be questioned. But so the double pronger is he's in the gun because he needs to lift with his effort, but I think there's some culpability for Hardwick for flipping and flopping. Nothing is harder as a player to be defensive meetings 1 week, forward meetings the next, then he's in the ruck. It's like, come on, let's just settle him down in one position.
I don't mind the discussion, but at what point does the player take responsibility for commanding a position?
That's why it's a double pronger. But I thought he did that last year. Like 40 goals as a third tall is a good return. There's not many that are going to kick 40 goals as a third tall this year. That's sort of your Rolly Henry type numbers. He's never going to be the key. That's hopefully your Todd Marshall. You get that out of him. That's Jai Amos. That's the That's great. Kick 40 goals a year. You're going to end up with a lot of goals by the time your career finishes. And then to have King and Walter, what a setup. Like, clubs would kill for that setup in their forward 50. So, yep, there's definitely some responsibility for Lukosius, but I just thought the management of him has been poor.
Max Gawn. So last night, I love Max. I can't stop watching Max Gawn. And when he knocked that one through from outside 50, it got me thinking, big Max. So Max has kicked 2 goals from 8 opportunities inside 50, right? And he's kicked 3 goals, 1 from outside 50. Now work that out. I mean, there are low percentage opportunities outside 50, and Max has knocked through 3 out of 4 and can't get near it when he's close to goal.
We had, Jono came on Sports Day. I'm sure he would have listened to it, and we definitely weren't saving our best stuff for Channel 9. We did it on Sports Day on Wednesday night. And he asked the question, who would you take for a set shot outside 50? He was going through all different scenarios. Who would you take on a snap? Who would you take from inside 30? Who would you take from 40 to 50? And who would you take out? He said he'd take Max Gawn. And he said he would take Max Gawn over any other player for a set shot outside 50.
I can't believe
Who would you take? Set shot outside 50.
Jake Stringer.
Jake Stringer, the package.
From outside 50. Only if the game's in the balance.
I think I'd take...
Only when it means something.
I think I'd take my man Tex, I think.
Oh, yeah, Tex, very good.
My man Tex.
A couple of things I want to touch on.
Don't go Fremantle again.
What do you mean?
Are you not going to go our friends in Perth again, are you?
Well, no, I'm not, but we're just going to spin through the games. But
you're going to, aren't you?
This is who they've beaten. They've beaten 18th.
What are you saying?
They've beaten 18th, 17th, 15th, 13th, 12th, and 11th, and they've lost to 7th and 8th.
It's a fair point.
So if they're going to make a statement, it's at home against a Tom McCartan-less Sydney Swans. It's, in my opinion, it's time to put up or shut up.
Yes. Okay.
They're not going to get a better opportunity to beat the Swans like they are tonight.
Good morning to Kingy's friends in Perth this morning. I want to see...
It's not about us, is it? It's not about the outside noise. Just get the job done.
Exactly. What I want to see for at least 5 minutes in this game on Sunday between West Coast and Collingwood, I want Adam Simpson to say, Harley, I just want you to go and shadow Nick Dacos for 5 minutes. That's what I want to see.
That's ridiculous.
No, it's brilliant. It's
ridiculous.
Imagine if we saw that. Imagine if we saw...
Why would you do it?
A challenge. Why wouldn't you? Well,
why would you?
Plenty of reasons.
Give me one. Good one.
To learn what the best do and to see whether you can expose him the other way. I think there's some tactical nous involved as well. Can you get him forward?
Give him windburn.
Can you expose? Well, that's the point. Like, this is how
Well,
hard
just set a player up to fail.
Because it's a learning experience for the long term. It's not for the now. It's not about the now for West Coast. It's about 3 years' time. What an experience to go head to head with Nick Dacos for 10 minutes.
He's not going to be able to go with Nick. We haven't got one player in the game that's been able to go with Nick Dacos.
2 minutes. Go with him. Why wouldn't you?
Because he's not going to be able to do it.
Oh, I think he should. I think that the learning benefits that you would get
just
from
take
Harley
the loss
Reid,
on this guy. You've had a bad week with this guy.
No, I've had a good week. I've had a very good week. It's the ones that are the sooks and the overreaction after are the ones that have had a bad week. I'd love to see it. It'd be great. What else is on your agenda?
That's not going to happen. You know that's not going to happen. What are you expecting from Port Adelaide tonight? So without Connor Rozee, I'm fascinated to see who stands up and can they compete. Geelong are hard to beat at home, and I'm not necessarily talking about them winning. It's just being in the game. Do you think they can compete tonight?
I think they can compete. I don't give them any chance to win the game of football. You know who I tried to get on the program this morning? Who snubbed us?
Oh, they were getting snubbed a bit.
Dom Cassisi kicked the left foot snap the last time they won there. And he's a very funny man. Dom Cassisi's got
Is that the last time they won there?
Yeah, 07. I think I'm right in saying that. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a long time since they've won in Geelong, and then that led to the grand final, which we witnessed this morning. But
how can you not get Dom Cassisi on?
He said he was in some meetings. I was like, come on.
What, at 6:30 in the morning? So what sort of meetings is he in?
He's a mortgage broker.
Who's getting a mortgage at 6:30 in the morning?
Funding options. He does a great job. Check him out if you're looking for a home loan. But we will get him on at some stage. He's a funny man, but it's been just a long time. So I don't give them any chance, but I hope I hope they can defend a little bit better and we don't see those fast goals on transition that we saw last week.
Where do you sit with the Luke Parker not getting
No, I'm
back
okay
into the
with it.
Swan?
I think it's a
Yep.
good problem. It's the Ryan O'Keefe treatment, isn't it? He had that treatment for a while at Sydney, and to play Jordan and Adams and Parker in the same team is probably not going to work. So I think who would question what John Longmire is doing and the decisions that he makes behind Chris Scott? He's the second best coach in football. Just lastly on my agenda, before we hand the program over to you and you can have your say and we'll get the news with Theo. Has 6, 6 and 6 been a good rule?
Been a great rule.
I don't know if it has. That's the consensus view.
What do you mean?
Well, I looked at the numbers.
numbers?
Points from centre clearance since the introduction of 6, 6 and 6 is up 0.5 of a point. And what you've gained with that 0.5 of a point scoring from centre bounce clearance is you've lost the tactical coaching nous that you got with the moves that the coaches could make from centre bounce. I actually don't know if it has been a good rule.
But you don't know that it hasn't.
Well,
How do you know what would have happened to scoring? Coaches are taking us down a dark path.
Because we've seen it was 10.2 points from clearance prior to 6, 6 and 6. It's now 10.7. So we do know we had a heap of evidence.
It's
to
gone
say
up.
It's gone up 0.5 of a point.
5%.
But what you've lost with that is half forwards coming up and sprinting through the stoppage.
awesome.
Your wingman's back. Your
Awesome.
half forwards up to the wing.
Awesome.
You've taken away significant levers that
Who
coaches
cares?
were able to pull. What for
Mate, they did that.
for
They were doing all
0.5
those.
of a point.
But they were doing all those things, and it was getting 10 points a game.
10.2.
You just-
Now 10.2 to 10.7.
But they were doing all those wonderful things, and we were getting 1.5 goals.
I'm not sure it is, and you get the stupid secondary warnings and all that rubbish that we get.
Do you get the Jordan De Goey goal if you don't have 666?
Yeah, we still saw goals.
You'd
from
have
centre
18
bounce.
players,
We
you'd have-
still saw goals
Nah.
from centre bounce.
No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't.
Yeah,
You would not have got the Jordan De Goey
0.5
goal in a grand final.
0.5 of a point.
One of the iconic moments in our game, and you wouldn't even be celebrating
would have
because
got
you
some-
want
you may have
14
got Nick
players
Dacos
behind the ball.
streaming through the back of the stoppage and some
No
moves
way.
that have been made, and we could analyse that from the coach's box and give the coaches some power.
How boring.
That has been taken off. I'm not certain at all. This has been a good rule, and don't get me started on stand, and don't get me started on the kick-in rules. They've actually done not a whole lot to benefit the game. That was the agenda. You can have your say for Aussies living life on the go. Signet Phone Accessories go the distance, keeping you connected and protected.